Hey, thanks for coming to check out this episode of Defining Success with Marion. Please take a second and just hit subscribe. It will really help for the success of this podcast. And also, if you'd like to define success in your own life or have a conversation about how to achieve it, please reach out. I'd love to chat with you. Thanks and enjoy the episode. Hi, Mercedes. Welcome to Defining Success. How are you doing?
Good, Marion. How are you today?
I'm great. Really excited for this because there's nothing more that I love to talk about besides, wellness and food and mom and going out on your own, all the good stuff. So we have so much to talk about. But before we dive in, I'm just going to read a little bit about you for our listeners to be familiar with Mercedes Vargas. All right. Here we go. Mercedes is redefining what it means to succeed as a modern mother and entrepreneur. As a mom of 2 teenagers and the daughter of Dominican parents, she brings a deep appreciation of horticulture and the richness it adds to every aspect of her life and work. With a BA in psychology from Columbia University and years of experience as a pastry chef, Mercedes brings both culinary expertise and deep understanding of human behavior to her work as a health coach, specializing in maternal health. So good. So to get us started, I thought it would be really interesting, before we go back to hear about your upbringing and your parents and their background and your background, I actually thought it'd be really interesting to ask you what you mean when you say maternal health.
Well, so a lot of the people I've coached have been moms that are either in their third trimester and during their fourth, what you would call the 4th trimester postpartum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been the cohort that I've actually done the most work with through a company called Obtain Health and the Better Nutrition Program. So it's been my pleasure to really teach them how to, because people don't have nutrition basics. People do not know how to nourish themselves. And for them to learn those skills and really appreciate how to build a better plate, it's made a real difference. And I've seen the progress, because you do want to do your best, but if you don't know, how can you do it?
Mm-hmm.
So just really going over the nutrition basics with them and really helping them and seeing the success they've had and being able to, every client has said it's been so helpful when we brainstorm about how to build that better plate for them. And it's so unique to them. It's very personalized.
Totally. especially during that time of life that you're talking about. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, sort of the old school way of when you're pregnant and you have different cravings and there's things that you just can't, right? Some people at least have the anti-cravings.
Aversions, yeah.
The aversions, that's the word. How do you find that what's your number one sort of go-to in terms of helping them shape their nutrition? Is there a baseline that you have for the best optimizing, their nutrition the best in those later trimesters of the pregnancy?
Yeah, usually it's some of them, they haven't really eaten, right? Because they had so many aversions. So we start with, what are you enjoying? What's currently on your plate? And how could we add nutrition to it? Could we add some hemp seeds, or can we add some chia seeds or some Greek yogurt, add some fiber through fruit? Just really, we always start with, what are they enjoying? It's one of the first questions, what did you enjoy this morning? Or what are you currently enjoying? And then we'll build on that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So it's you're not coming in there with a list of, these are the supplements that are recommended that you take. It's more just sort of, I guess the generic way of saying it is meeting them where they're at, right? And
Yes.
Yeah, working with that. That's so awesome. I wish I had known you. I wish I had known you then, because I remember just feeling very overwhelmed by all the advice and what my own body was telling me, and trying to find the right place, because it's a very nerve-wracking time because to your point, you want to do everything right. So to have you as sort of like as a coach, through that period must be really special. Really cool work. I love. How did you discover that? Is it just through the company?
Yeah, so I had met like Ashley Koff, I think through Clubhouse, right? And then
I love that.
she was looking for coaches, and then she had this like cohort that was Spanish speaking. So through this work with Obtain, which at that time was free from market, so it was I got to work with that cohort of Spanish speakers, and one of the like they had like nutrition basic classes, and we actually recorded a whole program on nutrition basics. I went out to Ohio. We recorded it in English and in Spanish. And then, this was given to the company. And yeah, just being able to support people that might not. And, the families at that time were just families that were dealing with allergies, which is still like a thing that people, how do they substitute things, right? And
Yeah.
how, like if you have an egg allergy or if you're trying to go gluten free, like what can you really enjoy? And it was
Mm-hmm.
it was
And
such a gift to get that opportunity.
yeah, and again, like the work that you do is so special because if there's things that you have, if you're allergic to your point, if you have an egg allergy or there's a whole, I mean, peanut allergy, there's a whole section in markets where you can go that are like peanut free, dairy free, whatever it is, gluten free. But really, if I understand correctly, a lot of your approach is doing it through whole foods and finding
Yes.
right and like really not just relying on products and that
Yeah.
aisle. Yeah, which is super to your point, empowering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't have to go to a box. Like you shouldn't read a label. It should be something that you could enjoy that's naturally like gluten free or it doesn't contain peanuts or,
Yes,
it's
totally.
amazing what contains like gluten. Like,
So yeah, talk about that
yeah.
for a second. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, like you would think like so there was a recent situation where there was a question about if goat cheese I'm still working in the in a hotel, right? So there was a question about there's a salad that has like a goat cheese like balls that are fried. So I was like, well, it doesn't become, it's like no longer gluten free once you put it in the fryer because
Right.
everything else goes in the fryer, right? And then, so my response is no, but they're like, but it's made with cornflakes. And I was like, yeah, cornflakes isn't gluten free. What do you mean corn? It's corn. I'm like, oh, but have you read the other ingredients in cornflakes, like malt? It has barley.
Right. And like, thankfully you were there to catch that. So when
Yeah.
you say you're working at the hotel, where are you working right now?
Well, it's transitioning right now to next week. We have new owners, and the property is supposed to go back to being the London, New York. So,
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how
yeah.
long have you been there?
Maybe like I left the Ritz and I was going to build my business and then the pandemic happened. So I've been lucky enough to do the work, the health coaching um virtually, right? So
Yeah.
but it's still so a friend of mine who was in F&B that we worked together at the Ritz needed someone in pastry and he's like, "Oh, can you come?" This was when the property was the Conrad, New York.
Right.
And so he asked me to join the team, and I did. And this was right before the pandemic. And so I was there 4 months, I think, before the pandemic happened. And then post pandemic, they called me back. So I did end up going back because I do enjoy, like, I. I, I guess because of my background, I always say I'm like my dad who can't stop. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll work in the hotel and I'll build my business and
Yeah.
do multiple things at the same time.
Yeah. So that's a great moment. So let's hear about your background and your dad, your parents growing up. Where did you grow up? They're Dominican. How long have they been in the States? Let's go for it. Do tell your
Okay.
history.
Okay. Thanks for letting me share that. My dad grew up in Rockland County, New York. He came when he was about 8.
Mm.
And then he ended up going back to DR after Vietnam. Like he came back from the Vietnam War and then he went to DR and spent time with his cousin, and then our parents, like friends, they are, the families were friends. My parents' families.
Right.
So he saw my mom. He'd come back to visit her in Dominican Republic, and then they got married there. And we just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary this last December. And they lived in New York when they first moved here. I was born in Nyack, New York. And then as a kid, I was always sick with asthma and the cold. We were talking before this about how cold it is currently in New York. And I can't even remember since I've been back how this winter is like this. So these is probably closer to the winters we had when I was a kid, meaning we ended up moving to Florida. So my parents live in Florida. They've been married for 50 years, and family is so important to them. Like the time I spent with them, we had the family get together, and we celebrated. And with my aunts who are like 90, my parents are 80 now. And my aunts in their 90s were there, and it's just such a special moment for my girls to spend time with their grandparents and have my mom saying 6, 7. They were just dying laughing and just having her dance to Selena's Como la Flor. Oh my God, they were just having a ball with her.
Oh, that's so special. I love that. How old are your girls?
So I have a 20-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Oh, wow. You've got a few years in between. And is the 20-year-old in New York still?
Yeah, she's upstate in college. So she's in her junior year.
Awesome. Wow. As your dad, you said your dad served in Vietnam? He's a vet?
Yeah. So he's a vet. Yeah. So he served in the Air Force and then came back, and he's worked so many different jobs. Like what I remember as a kid was he was always up to something and always like ready with a new idea. So it's always been, they've been so supportive. Like when I decided to go to culinary school and just like do I was pre-med bio when I first got to New York, right? To go to Columbia. And then I switched to psychology, and I still did all my pre-med requirements. And I decided to take time off, and I worked for a private psychiatric group.
Oh, wow.
And I realized like, wait, I don't think I want to do medicine. And like the beauty of Columbia is like the networks. And I was able to meet with certain people who kept saying the same name. And I was like, oh, I guess I need to go speak to this person. And I ended up working for their company, and it was in ad sales, right? This was during the .com era.
Right.
And, really like exploring different things before even realizing I wanted to go to culinary school.
Okay, wait, I need to hear about that. First off, what year is this?
This is, so I graduated in 99.
Okay.
So this is like 2000, 2001.
Yeah. So like culinary school wasn't, how do I put this? Then, right? It wasn't as like hip, I think. Is that fair to say, as it is now? I think,
it wasn't as hip as now. It was like post 9/11, since I was down on Wall Street. It really like made me think like, what do I really want to do?
Yeah.
Right. And I was still in that searching, right? Like, okay, let me do this ad sales job, and like was getting promoted in my department, and I was like, but this, just like having the privilege of being able to like look at other things, like, what else can I do? Like it was a time where, you're exploring, you're in your early 20s. And then, so it was also like, okay, so culinary school is expensive. Like, I was like, wow, at that time, I think now it's even 80,000 for like 6 months.
Yes, it's
at that time it was 30,000. And I was like, wow, I have student loans I'm paying. Like maybe there's, so luckily, ICE, which is the school I went to, Institute of Culinary Education, they had like a work study program. So that is what I ended up doing to get the credits for. So instead of taking out a loan or anything, I just did the work study, which was priceless. And the experience of working with all their instructors
Yeah.
right? So by the time I started my actual course, I knew the building. Like I like knew
Yeah.
everything in that build, like how to use equipment, how, different, produce, like things ingredients that I might have not been familiar with just from being in that space, like
Yeah.
for like a year and a half before
That's awesome.
actually
That's the way
taking
to
the
do
course.
it. That's like
Yeah.
really getting the most out of the experience, right? That's
Yeah.
really cool because you get to also experience the chef slash instructors from an operational point, not just
Yeah.
as student teacher. That's really cool. So, did you
Yeah.
do a stage, or what was your next step after culinary school?
So after culinary school, it's kind of funny because I did do a stage at the Ritz-Carlton when they reopened, and it was Gabrielle's restaurant, and but I was like, no, this isn't the place for me. And then but then it's funny because then I spent like 16 years in that kitchen later. At that moment, it wasn't
Right.
the place for me. And then I ended up doing my internship at the Soho Hotel,
Uh huh. Yeah.
and then got to do a James Beard event with the chef. And then he was opening a place. They were opening a boutique hotel. So I ended up going there for the Maritime Hotel was my first hotel. And that was, I was so excited to get that job. I never even asked how much I was getting paid
Totally.
or anything. I was just so excited. And then
Yeah.
my first day there, I was told I'm going to be the pastry girl, which totally threw me off. But it was actually like a blessing because I am severely allergic to shellfish. And that was one of the reasons when I staged at the Ritz and I was in Grand Manger, it was like shrimp that I had to deal
Yeah.
with. And I was like, oh my God, no, I can't do this.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah. So, oh my God, you got thrown into it, and
Yeah.
talk about that because just for the listeners, pastry, and we talked about this a little bit before we hopped in. Takes discipline. I find at least more than the savory side of the culinary arts. Pastry is it's this beautiful. I'm so enamored by it. It's this beautiful symphony of discipline and creativity, and it's so special, and it gives me chills just talking about it. So I'd love to hear how that was for you, getting sort of tossed into it, and also before we do that, at your program, was pastry arts a good portion of it? So were you prepared?
Well, in my program, I feel like when I was doing the assistant work, that's where I really ended up getting the pastry skills, right? From like being assisting in different pastry classes or different because in the curriculum, pastry, if you're on the culinary arts trajectory, is just like a week.
Yes, that's why I
So,
asked. Yeah.
yeah. So I was just like, my goodness. Okay, I am going to do this, right? And I did. And I was lucky enough to work with a great pastry chef like Amadou Lee. He now has a place, Alf Bakery in Chelsea Market,
Mm.
which is amazing. And it's amazing to like go and get his breads and different like patisseries that he has. It's just so that's definitely a place I recommend whenever I'm like in the area. I make sure I go in. Um, but yeah, it was great to learn from Amadou, and yeah, they were simple, rustic Italian desserts. So it
Mm.
was like tiramisu, apple crostata, so but it was a big learning experience, and it took time for me to get it down, but I did, and it was interesting because I started with like working service, and then it was production, and then it was like, wow, I had so much like my schedule, I could control it more and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So that is one of the beauties of pastry too. Like
Yeah.
if you get a production, you don't have to be on the line, and you can just like really be creative, and came up with specials, and always played around with the biscotti was one of those things that we would play, like switch up. I would always try to do different flavors and play around with that. And I was lucky enough to get an assistant that had experience. So Amadou had So he was also at the other restaurant
Mm-hmm.
that we had. So he created those recipes for La Bottega, and he was at the Japanese restaurant that was also Matsuri was also there. And so, with his guidance and also having an assistant that worked in various like John George restaurants, it was kind of like good to have like him almost teach me certain things, just little tricks that make things easier.
Yeah, for sure. So you really moved up the ranks there. And I also want to just get context too. I'm imagining, so your firstborn was born at this point, right? Am I getting the timeline right?
No, she wasn't.
Oh,
No, so I had completed my first year there. So this we're talking. So 2000. Wait, so I was there a year. I think at the Christmas party was when I realized I was pregnant. So she was born the following year,
amazing.
and she was born in the summer. And yeah, it was 2005 when she was born. And yeah, yeah, that was also an experience, a first, like having to pump in a locker room, and like there was still none of the the things that people are so fortunate to have now.
I have to tell you, it's funny. By my firstborn, I had spinning studios at that time. And even then, excuse me, the one that at this point when he was born, I had one location in East Hampton, New York, and we only had one bathroom, right? And so pumping and that whole thing was like it was crazy because I would go in there and there'd be people waiting in between classes. It was but I never thought, to be honest with you, I never thought of what it must have been like if you were working in a kitchen, and that would be tough then, especially. I'm sure maybe I don't know, maybe it hasn't changed. I'm not sure if it's changed much, but now I'm thinking about the kitchens I was in, and I can't imagine having to do that. God bless
No,
you.
and it was just insane. Like, and by the time I had my second daughter, and I was at the Ritz for a couple of years, and I would, I had somewhere to put the milk, like a
Yeah.
refrigeration, and also just asking for a space for it, right? And I was able to get that. And, every time I saw a new mom in that space from other areas of the hotel, it's like, yes, I got that for us.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you were at the Ritz and you had your daughters. And
Well, I went to the Ritz when Isabella was 2. She had
mhm.
already turned 2. And then my other daughter came like 4 years later. And then yeah, and I was already comfortable enough to like advocate for myself, like, hey, maybe a curtain could go in this area, and that we
Yeah.
could, be able to use it as like a pumping station.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Excuse me. And so how was that working at the Ritz and raising your girls? It's not, I mean, you were far enough in it at this point that I imagine you were able to, I don't want to say create the schedule of your dreams, but at least create a schedule that worked for you.
Yeah, no, so by the time so when I took the position, so I took a pastry cook position because it's union property.
Mm-hmm.
So and I was like, oh, I'm going to learn from all these great chefs that have been there for years. And then, of course, our executive pastry chef left like months into me starting there. And then we're fortunate enough to have some other great executive chefs, but, they did. Pastries changed a lot in the hotels. And it's pretty sad that people don't appreciate it the way it should be.
Yeah.
But, but I was fortunate enough, most of the time I was there, my schedule was morning shift. So I mostly had a 10 to 5. So for my youngest, I would drop her off.
That's great.
She went to daycare like on 55th, and then like I'd go on to work. Or when she was in elementary school, she went to school in Midtown too. Like we live in Midtown, so it was like I'd walk her to school and then just walk over to work.
That's great. I mean, what a nice setup. So, at what point were you? and perhaps this has always been this way, but were you sort of intrigued by the healthy eating part of the culinary world? When did that become
It's
like,
kind
yeah,
it's kind of funny because you work in a kitchen, but you always don't have the healthiest choices around you.
yeah,
So it kind of became like when I did 2 triathlons and I was kind of like trying to figure out what to have to fuel myself, like, because when you're training for triathlon, like we're lucky enough to have a pool in the building. So it was like a 5 a.m. Swim time. Like we'd swim like for an hour and a half. And then like so when I was training for the triathlon, and then like I'd come home and do all the mom stuff, get everybody ready, and like and you're really hungry after doing an hour and a half in the pool.
yeah. But you go to work and it's like you think you find what you need.
So it's
Yeah.
like you have to fuel yourself before going to work. And then it's like, okay, so what am I gonna have for lunch? And then it's like, oh, the options in the cafeteria really suck. Like
Yeah.
even though it has a salad bar, it's like all canned things in the salad bar. It's like nothing's really fresh. And then, there were points where we did make our own food. That is one of the beauty of being in the kitchen. But sometimes you can't control all like
Right.
I think my go-to lunch was a sweet potato that I'd roast when I'd first get to work. Chicken and avocado. That was like a lot of my that
That's
was my lunch
that
most
works.
days.
Yeah, that works. And you had access to it. So, yeah, that's cool. So, how did you get to the point where you decided to start your own business?
So there was the opportunity. So they were doing a lot of changes at the Ritz. And I just finished a program. Carrie Glassman has this Nutritious Life program. So I had just finished it. And I was like, oh, I want to learn more about this health coaching and how to make it my own. And I've always enjoyed like teaching people how to cook. And so I was like, well, maybe I should start like teaching people, doing cooking classes. So I kind of put myself out there doing cooking classes. And a lot of the times I was doing dinners for like when we had auctions at school, I always volunteered like a dinner that I would
Mm-hmm.
cook. And so I had already had like some referrals of doing that kind of work for people or getting hired to do like private dinners. So I was like, well, maybe people do want to learn how to cook. So I put myself out there for teaching to cook and like I had some clients right before the pandemic, but it wasn't enough to be like to like replace my income.
Right, right.
So I was like when my coworker said, "Oh, come work with me at the Conrad." I was like, "Yeah, sure," because I could still probably do both things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I started building like Eating Empowered with Mercedes. So I started with like doing cooking classes for people. And, I still do like, yes, well, today I was supposed to do a cooking class for a client I worked with 3 years ago. But unfortunately, this cold has caused her to
Oh,
not
no.
feel well today. So we're rescheduling it. But I always like take the opportunity to like, I've lucky enough to have repeat clients and people reach out like, my dear friend let you know, Solana let you know about me. So,
Yeah, and
I have a great network of people.
well, that happens. And I just think this is important because just to get back to why we're here, right? Defining success. And, I think it's really important to just, what you just tossed out there, just like, network and people. You have spent a lifetime building that network, and your commitment to your work is why you're able to now have this word of mouth and this great reputation and clients who repeat clients. I mean, that didn't just happen overnight. It's also really interesting for me to hear that, like, and I think it's important for people to hear, because I think this is often looked over when we tend to toss the word entrepreneur around a little loosely sometimes, and a real entrepreneur usually has to have a day job. And to get their feet on the ground so that they're stable enough to go out on their own. So you insightfully so and necessarily so did that when, especially, you made the move to the Conrad, and then if I recall, COVID hit, right? And that
Yeah.
changed things. So what happened then? Because I am actually interested, since I didn't even think about this before our call, but like COVID was such a time, people started cooking at home for the first time. And as, I mean, if you know, people started being like, oh, I can bake. Like, oh, I didn't realize that it's nice to eat with my family. So I'm wondering if that had any impact on your work. Excuse
Oh,
me.
most definitely. And it was like the first time I ever like recorded myself like teaching or cooking or doing Zoom classes. And just like I remember someone had reached out that I had um like companies reached out about like, oh, can you create like for a client like a class and stuff like that, so it was like requests for videos and different things. And I don't like being in front of the camera, but I was like, okay, I guess I will create these things. And there was a company that was doing like chef consults, and I really enjoyed doing work with them. And like I had shared with the founder a simple cookie recipe, a gluten-free cookie recipe that was just almond flour and Nutella
Yeah,
for a cookie. And that was all it
that's
was.
it.
And, something simple that you might have the ingredients for. And, and it's funny because some of my people in my network had shared, like we were on a call like for Colombia, and one of the ladies she shouted me out for the work I was doing. And, I was, this is one of my mentors
That's
shouting me out for
amazing.
the work I was doing, and like making the cookie for some guests she had, so.
Yeah, that's so great. What a great story. Thank you. It's those little moments, right, where you're just like acting on impulse and intuition. And look, you just never know. It's I thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. I love
Yeah.
that. So, what were the next steps to you going out on your own, and how has that been? Quite honestly,
Well,
that's yeah.
so it was interesting because, that client that I had that she she used to take classes from me, was to the point where she spent time in Florida, then they came back to New York, and she's like, "Do you think you could just come and cook for me?" Instead of like teaching her to cook. And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
So that was like my first experience with like meal prep. And it was not anything that I ever thought I would do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I'd go over to the Upper East Side and I'd cook for them and, prepare those meals. And then there's so many great networks for women in culinary. And so I think I saw like a post for the Culinistas on like women in hospitality. And I applied for that because I wasn't hearing back from the color, like from the Conrad yet.
Right.
It was still like, oh, so how do I did want to teach people how to cook, but if people want me to cook for them, then I can do that too, right? And so I ended up joining the Colonistas as one of their chefs on their platform, and really got to spend like a good year and a half before I got called back to the hotel, and really got to spend time with some really great customers that, they do enjoy cooking, but they just don't have time for it. So
Right.
with that experience, it's like, what can I create that, so I am launching this thing called like these kitchen confidence sessions, because sometimes people don't want a cooking class, but they want a system, like something that works for them.
Oh,
Like,
so smart.
so,
So smart.
yeah. So hopefully by the time this podcast is
Yeah.
up, I have launched it. And it's just like a session where it's using my coaching skills and, just having that personal conversation with them about how they can, it just like takes some one step sometimes
Yeah, but
that can make a difference.
if I may, I just excuse me again. First off, let's do our best to plan this so that when you're ready to launch that, we will, put this out in the world. So for sure. But I love this because one of the things that is really special about what you come to the table pun intended, with is,
Yeah.
a, and I don't mean this in a critiquey, judgy way. I really don't. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of people in the health coaching space that don't have a professional chef background, and so sometimes they're loving and, from a good place approaches to helping a client in the kitchen can be really cumbersome because they don't know a lot of the tricks of the trade that you've spent years mastering. There's, I'm sure, ways that you're helping people, and you're going to, especially with this new project, but help people in the kitchen, some tips that there's no way, like the normal person doesn't know around how they can prepare, how they can pre-prep, like all the pre-game that can go into it that saves hours and, just makes things so much easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like super exciting that you're doing this. You said it's the kitchen
So
confident,
kitchen confidence, yeah.
kitchen
Confidence
confidence,
sessions, yeah.
kitchen confidence sessions. I love it. And how base level are you going to go? Like, will you do prep skills, knife skills, like where, or do you meet them where they're at?
I meet them where they're at, basically, because sometimes, it's like people do know how to cook, but sometimes they're given like dietary things that they're not, it's new to them. Like they're like, okay, I can't have this any longer. But that's the beauty of food. There's so many options. That's things you never thought about. Like when I was home, my cousins were like obsessed with chayota, right? And I was like, had this like big smile on my face because my menu when I graduated from culinary school, I made a chayote salad. So it's kind of like, oh wow, like we're talking about chayote still, like, and they were talking about how it's so great for diabetic, and and there's certain things that are just like, oh yeah, like that could be something that someone might not use, that squash, right? And it's like an amazing squash.
Totally. And speaking of, do you get involved in sourcing foods at all? Are you like what are your thoughts there on like where to get the best vegetables, fruits and vegetables, and all of that? Do you have thoughts? Are you a farmer's market person? Like, yeah.
I love going to the farmer's market when I can, and I also love getting a CSA. Like for a while, I had a CSA, a local CSA that I would pick up, but then my time was so like, it's a specific time that you have to go and pick up. So I love Farm to People, which delivers it to your home.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that really helpful because you could also control the size, right? It could be small or medium, and then you could always add on other things. And like they have grown so much, they have so much on their availability now. They'll deliver even other things other than the CSA box.
Yeah, that's great.
And yeah, and then I do shop at Whole Foods sometimes for clients because that seems to be like what's closest to them. There's a lot of locations now.
Yeah.
And but a lot of the times I have clients get their own groceries. That way, that wherever their favorite butcher or favorite, I am lucky enough to still have like the network of the Colonistas, and so always have chefs to like run things by, like where to source certain things, like.
So good. So good. I'm curious if you were to meet somebody now who is sort of trying to break into the industry, if you have any advice that you would give that person, especially, let's say, a young woman.
Just like continue to like share their gifts. Like it takes a while, right? Like, and it takes time to build trust, right? Because it is like when you're in someone's home, in their kitchen, like you are building trust with them, right? Like, and sometimes you're just there by yourself in their home, right? And like when I find myself in those situations, you see me with the dog and the cat are there, but I'm with my headphones listening to a podcast, like I'm just like in my own world, like, cooking. And, but it's a hard field, and it's sometimes like you just have to like continue to, I've met so many women that have started, and then have left the kitchen just because they haven't felt supported. And it could happen. So I'm the only woman in the kitchen in my, the current kitchen I'm in. I'm the only one. Now we have a sous chef that she's with us now, but for a while I was the only woman, and it's different.
It is. It's different. Yeah, it is. And it's not it's not I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't know that it's hard. It's not easy. It's different. I think you put it really well. It's just different. Yeah. And like you said, you just have to keep going. And right. And like you just kind of just have to keep doing your work and and just push through, which you have done, which is so fantastic, which makes me ask this next question of you, which is if you have like a long-term vision, and it's okay if you don't, I'm just curious, if you have a long-term vision for your work, do you see this? And long-term could be a week, it could be years, whatever your call.
Yeah, no, I definitely would love to do more coaching and have like more um, clients sign up for like the kitchen, like when I launch the kitchen sessions, I'm hoping that it's successful and it leads to more I do enjoy though being part of hospitality. Like I do love the work that I do at the hotel,
Yeah.
but if ideally I'd love to be like part-time there and like really, more because I feel like there's also that value of that different perspective that I could bring into the kitchen. Like I've been lucky enough to be able to put a vegan dessert on the menu,
Oh,
right?
that's awesome.
And like, yeah. So it's like the little contributions you do that like make the difference for that guest experience, right? Um, Hotels are trying to do a bit better and being able to like keep that network of our reps, like for Valrhona, always have these great classes for us that we get to experience different things. Like last year, we got to go to the Tin Building with Chef Gordy. From Spain, and he has this whole like bee concept that he's creating that it's like healthier desserts and like just like being able to learn from people like that. So
That's heavenly.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What was the vegan dessert that you had got on the menu?
Oh, so I have a chocolate mousse that I serve with like cocoa nibs, fruit, and some mint crystals and some flowers, and
Mm.
it's really beautiful. And I think it's like a representation of like feminine, like it
Yes.
shows like my feminine side, but it also is beautiful. So a lot of times like people like our GM is dairy free and he was like, I want something sweet. I was like, oh, I have something for you. And I sent it out. And I like when I went to go see how he was doing, he was like taking a picture of it. So that just like made me happy.
Is there anything better? I don't think there is, honestly. I
Yeah.
don't. There just isn't. What's the base of it?
Oh, so it's made with dark chocolate and then aquafaba and coconut milk.
Oh my gosh.
So really simple too, because so this I had a discussion with Jordy when I took the class. He's not a fan of aquafaba. I am though, and I'm still using it. He feels like they like using like these other chemicals and fibers, and I just feel like sometimes all those
Yes.
things like are just a lot of you can't make it at home. Like it's
Yes.
not for,
Yeah, the health coach in you is like, ah. I get
exactly.
it. I understand both sides of it for sure, right? Like I get it, but then when it comes down to what you want to work with, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay, so now one last thing I wanted to ask you about is cooking for your kids, and has you mentioned that your family you've got a lot of traditions in your family, you guys are really close, so was that a thing for you guys, with your girls? Did you eat dinner together or a meal or something? Like, did you have any traditions like that at home?
Yeah, no, we definitely like always have certain things that we make certain holidays and like they're like, "Oh, you're making they know." And it's funny, we have like almost like a system for the week, right? So when I'm home, my days off, like it's kind of like the mystery meals, like I'll cook what I want to cook, like
Yeah.
but when I'm not home, they have like dad makes like there's a burger night, there's a taco night, there's a like cutlet night, there's so there there's they know what to expect, except for like the days I'm home. Like last week, I think I did like pernil, like last night I did like a bolognese, so
Wow,
I'm the one that
lucky.
switches up, the menu for them. But yeah, it's kind of funny because my daughter was telling me, "Oh, mom, at school we're on a vegan menu." Right. And I was like, at the high school. And then I was like, I have so many questions. Like, but what are they really serving?
Yeah. Excuse me, totally. I actually later on, have you ever heard of wellness in the schools by any chance? Yeah.
Yes.
Nancy Easton's the founder of that, and I did an interview with her a few episodes ago, and it is really interesting. They've got this whole program, and I don't know about your daughter's school, but for the schools that she's serving, it's mostly vegan and plant based, and as far as I could tell, it's all like whole foods. It's not, it's real produce and whatnot. But so interesting that the schools have made this shift, right? That's another question too for you. Is like, I'm curious about your thoughts on the new food pyramid as a health coach and a chef.
Yeah, no, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it all depends on the person, right? And what they actually do enjoy, because there's a lot of people that are super happy with their vegan, like diet, right? And
Yeah,
like to just throw meat as like you should be having all this, animal protein. And, for those that's like the beauty of there's so many different ways of eating, right? That you I think the most important thing is knowing how to build that plate with your
totally.
protein and your fiber and, non-starchy veg and like a healthy fat, like
Totally.
really understanding.
Yeah, you really are true to your ethos because it goes back to the person and their needs and their likes and meeting them where they're at. So it's so true. Wow, I just really admire everything that you've done and that you're doing, and I love your new concept that you're launching. I'm really excited to see that. As we said earlier, we didn't touch much during this conversation, but like before we got on, we were talking about how that is such a thing that people just feel a little nervous in the kitchen, and I'm sure that there's no mistakes, right? It's like,
Yes.
yeah, especially in your own kitchen. It's like, yeah, what's the
Yeah,
worst?
you can enjoy it. Like you can enjoy it your way, right? Like
Yes,
it's like there's so many beautiful mistakes too sometimes that you make that you're like, "Oh, that's actually
totally,
delicious."
totally. Like, the times that maybe took something out of the oven too soon, it actually turns out it's better that way, right? Those little
Yeah.
nuances, and it's really cool that you've kind of made it a personal mission to help people feel more comfortable and confident to stay on brand in the kitchen, which is it's really great. So Mercedes, that thank you for sharing all of this because it's so heartwarming to hear your story of several successes throughout the trajectory of your career, which brings us to the moment where I get to ask you, Mercedes, how do you define success?
I define success by having those repeat customers that seek me out and really just being myself and just continuously trying to help and serve my community, my friends and family, just like everyone.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. That was really beautiful. Yeah, that was really, really great. Tell us, please, where everyone can find you. And please don't hold back. Share it all.
Okay. Well, you can find me on Instagram as eatingempowered.mercedes. I'm also on LinkedIn under Mercedes Vargas. And yeah, I have a newsletter that you could sign up on, and I always try to share like what's in season, a couple of recipes. This month's newsletter, I focused on, so we're in February right now, and I focused on meals for two, right? Because sometimes recipes call for like more than meal. So bit of focus on meals for two this month. And I always just try to throw in some like meal prep tips and stuff like that in the newsletter.
And I had, I also, by the way, just for the listeners too, on your Instagram, you occasionally drop recipes, and one of them that I'm so embarrassed to say I have the ingredients downstairs and I haven't made them yet, but the zucchini brownies, and I can't wait to make those. They look so good. So definitely so happy that we've been introduced, and so grateful to you for doing this, and I can't wait to share this with everybody. You are really a very special person. Thank you, Mercedes.
Oh, you're welcome. And the zucchini brownies, I would sneak them in on the club level at the Ritz all the time. It's so funny. Like,
oh, really?
Like, yes.
Did they know?
And so it's been the, well, I'd always just like, because the thing with the club level is, you know, they have different periods of like meals, and it always had like at least we'd serve at least 5 desserts. So occasionally I would make that recipe and just like zhuzh it up with like garnishes and stuff like that. And you know, I don't know if they ever really labeled the desserts. I think they just put them out. It looked beautiful and people would enjoy it without even realizing they were having something healthy.
So good. I love it. You're the best. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Great. Have an awesome day, Mercedes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.